I'm Gary Nosner, the former chief of the FBI Crisis Negotiation Unit and author of Stalling for Time, which was the basis for the Wacko TV series. I was a consultant for the filming. I retired from the FBI in 2003 following a 30-year career as an investigator, instructor, and negotiator. A significant focus of my career was directed toward investigating Middle East hijackings in which American citizens were victimized. In addition, I was an FBI hostage negotiator for 23 years of my career, retiring as the chief of the FBI's Crisis Negotiation Unit, Critical Incident Response Group, the first person to hold that position. In that capacity I was heavily involved in numerous crisis incidents covering prison riots, right-wing militia standoffs, religious zealot sieges, terrorist embassy takeovers, airplane hijackings, and over 120 overseas kidnapping cases involving American citizens. In my book, Stalling for Time, I take readers on a harrowing tour through many of the most famous hostage crises in the history of the modern FBI, including the siege at Waco, the Montana Freeman standoff, and the DC sniper attacks. Having helped develop the FBI's nonviolent communication techniques for achieving peaceful outcomes in tense situations, I offer a candid, fascinating look back at my years as an innovator in the ranks of the Bureau and a pioneer on the front lines. How did you end up in a career as a negotiator? Not exactly something every kid want to be growing up. Did you just talk yourself into it? The FBI has 350 part-time negotiators in the field and I became one of those, operating when needed, but otherwise being an investigator. Later I was asked to be what was then one of 3 full-time negotiators instructing and operating, and eventually when a larger dedicated unit was created, the Crisis Negotiation Unit, I was chosen to be the first chief. What was the strangest thing Koresh ever said to you over the phone? He didn't say it to me, but when Deputy Larry Lynch from McLennan County spoke with him, Koresh said, "Lynch, that's a funny name for a law enforcement officer. Every time I talk with Larry I repeat that line. That's pretty funny. This MF Koresh got jokes." What was your impression of David Koresh? What was he like? Koresh was complex, but in reality he was far darker, sinister, and manipulative than portrayed in the TV show. He was very narcissistic and self-serving. This was the part of the show I hated most. He ends up with an almost heroic death, when in reality he was a skeezy, manipulative, child molesting loser. The whole show made him seem like a swell, but misguided, guy. When encountering someone in a potentially dangerous crisis situation, what tactics have you personally found to be most beneficial in de-escalating? I think if you remain calm and respectful, you are far more likely to lower their emotional level. High emotion often drives anger and bad action, so by helping restore calm we achieve better outcomes. What do you think about the ever-increasing militarization of not only federal forces, but also state and local police? I have long been uncomfortable with the move toward increasing militarization. As a young FBI agent working the field, 2 of us would go arrest a bad guy as a normal course of business. Nowadays a SWAT team might be deployed for the same task. What was the biggest lesson or takeaway you learned after the siege was all said and done? Lots to respond to. I think the FBI as an organization relearned that we have highly skilled negotiators who should be given every opportunity to resolve incidents before we resort to tactical pressure. What was the easiest/shortest negotiation you were a part of? I flew to Manila in the Philippines on New Year's one year to help negotiate the release of an American citizen grabbed by a terrorist group. The person was released just as my plane arrived. I always joke they heard I was coming and got scared. Again, joking. It's been said before that the USA will not negotiate with terrorists in regards to American hostages abroad. Was this Philippines trip official in capacity, or were you volunteering? Thanks for taking the time to do this, Amma. Negotiating doesn't necessarily mean we'll give you anything. It could also mean release 4 hostages and I will turn the act back on for 1 hour. Or we can wait until you pass out from heat exhaustion. I'll be sitting out front drinking ice cold lemonade while you think on it. It's an art negotiating with people that were crazy/desperate enough to create a standoff that warrants an FBI negotiator. You can't give them anything, but you need everything they have in the world. In the TV series, Some of the FBI and ATF agents are portrayed as not really caring to end the standoff as non-violently as possible in some cases, and not really believing you could prevail in others. How close to the series did reality play out? Even though I strongly disagree with some actions by the ATF and FBI, I'm certain that every agent there wanted nothing more than for all to come out safely. No doubt in my mind. What's the craziest thing you've experienced during negotiations? I once called into an incident to provide advice as sought by a local department. They mistakenly gave me a number to call that was actually answered by the perpetrator. A most interesting phone call and experience. Hi Gary, would you say your negotiating skills helped in other aspects of your life, like personal relationships? If so, what would be some advice you could give that would help people keep their cool when everything seems to be going to sh*t? Thanks. Just remember that your calm demeanor and demonstration of empathy carry far more weight than your words alone. As Rudyard Kipling said, if you can keep your head when all around you are losing things, or words to that effect. Good guidance. Damn, that's some really good advice. I'm going to keep this quote. Thank you for doing this, Mr. Nosner. I wonder what are the most important lessons you learned from the Branch Davidians incident? Patience, self-control, and genuine concern for others. Can you share any particularly odd or humorous requests during negotiations? It didn't happen to me, but back in the 70s they had the birdseed bandit who held hostage in a bank demanding more birdseed for the birds who were having a hard time during a drought. Not your typical demand.